All right, so you've made it through budgeting on day one. You've made it through all those tasks you need to complete on day two. You've made it through the arbitration hearings on day three. You've made it through both free agency for players and coaches, and you've protected your own players from the Rule 5 draft. So, what if you yourself have players or openings on your team that you were unable to fill through free agency or through re-signing your own free agents, and you still have um, certain openings on your team that you need to fill, and you're hoping to fill them uh, cheaply or inexpensively. Well, you may find players on your team that or you may find openings for your team that you can draft through the Rule 5 draft. If you draft somebody through Rule 5, you pay 50,000 cash to the other team, and then you only have to, assuming the player doesn't have any years of service and is already being paid at the major league level, assuming the player that you drafted in Rule 5 is a prospect, you only have to pay him the major league minimum, which is $327,000. So once you get to the Rule 5 day, you'll actually go down to GM Player Development, Rule 5 Draft Prospects, and it's not going to have a list here because we're not there yet, but once your world is there on Rule 5 Organization Freeze Day, Rule 5 Draft Day, whatever you want to call it, it'll actually give you a list of players. Now, this list of players is actually a list of other people's players. That's who you're drafting from. These are uh, f- uh, minor leaguers that have been on a team for uh, 4 previous years, so they're in their fifth year or longer, and they're not protected on the 40-man roster of any of the other 31 teams. So you have the opportunity to draft these unprotected players in the Rule 5 draft. Um, Typically, what you want to do, just because the way the system is set up, is you want to go in before you go into your Rule 5 draft settings, which again is under Player Development Rule 5 draft settings. Before you do that, you actually want to go in and see if there's any players available that you would target in Rule 5. The reason you want to do that first is because if you go in and you set up um, your draft settings and you have already made up your mind you're only going to draft one player because you only have um, 24 guys on your 25-man roster and you don't see any free agents out there that you want to sign because maybe you need a shortstop and there's no free agents left. Um, and you're looking for a shortstop or a catcher or a minor league or a late innings reliever, low inning reliever, something like that. Um, and there's nobody left in free agency. So you don't want to go out into the Rule 5 draft and start picking your players and then go back and change the settings because as soon as you change the settings, it resets your whole draft. So you can go out there and say, okay, I'm only going to draft one player, but I'm going to rank 5 players. So you go in and you rank 5 players, um, but you're only going to draft one player. Well, in order to figure out who you're going to draft, you got to look at the pool of players. So you're going to, figure out the players first, see how many it is that you're willing to rank, and then go do the settings. Because if you do it the other way around, um, once you go in and and mess with your settings, and then you go and rank your players. If you mess with your settings again, it's going to redo all of your player rankings. And you don't want to redo the player rankings because the way it is set up, it's you get a small little box and you got to move all those players up and down. So when it resets, if you had your guy at number 2 on your board and he was originally number 220 on your board, you're going to have to go back in and find that 220th player again and move him back up. So the order of operation should be to go in and look at the players first, Rule 5 draft prospects, figure out how many players you're going to draft, if any, how many players you're going to rank, and then go into your Rule 5 draft settings and tell the system. You can tell, I mean, again, this team isn't in Rule 5 mode right now, so um, you can't really get into the settings and change them. So this team did their Rule 5 already. Um, so if you're only looking to target one player, you would put 1. Now, if you definitely want that player to be a shortstop, then you put that as 1. So typically what I do is if I'm only going to draft one player, I'll just put any player there. And then if I'm going to rank, 5 players and only draft one player, then I'll put my rank up there. And then you hit save down here, when you're in that mode within your world. So this particular setting here is telling the system to only actually draft one player in the Rule 5 draft. Um, and if you do draft that one, it has to be in your top 5. Now, once you hit save, again, that's going to reset any draft settings. So that's why you want to go in and you want to kind of look at, what players you're going to target. Don't necessarily put them in that order yet. Just kind of look, eyeball it, see how many players you're going to target or rank, and then come back in here, set your draft settings, and then go in and rank your players. That's the most effective way to do it to avoid the system resetting any work that you do. So, and that's how you do the Rule 5 draft.